Hey everyone, the name's Ossy Flawol. Narbacular Drop is a name you've no doubt heard about if you've lingered around the Portal community. Or, you just looked at Portal videos in recent times. Hi, Portal runner. After all, it's the reason why the Portal games even exist in the first place. Developed by a shooting group at DigiPen who dubbed themselves Nuclear Monkey Software, Narbacular Drop was developed in roughly a year from start to end, and featured the use of a mechanic where you could place portals to solve primarily navigation-based puzzles. The official story goes that Valve had attended the showcase at which Narbacular Drop was part of, and Gabe Newell was so impressed that he offered the entire team to work at Valve to finish the game there. Once Nuclear Monkey Software was at Valve, they rebooted the game into a more grounded science fiction setting that will land it in the Half-Life universe, and after 2 years of development there, we got Portal. Personally, I consider Narbacular Drop and Portal to be one and the same development cycle, but the story of how Narbacular Drop's development led to Portal will be covered in a future, much larger video project with many surprises to behold. So, given how important Narbacular Drop is, I wanted to celebrate its 20th anniversary this year. Just one problem to tackle first, however. If you search for the Narbacular Drop release date on Google, it says April 24th, 2005. But if you go to the Wikipedia article on Narbacular Drop, it says May 1st, 2005. But if you go to the original archived Narbacular Drop website, the first release of the game was on April 19th, 2005, after various public beta builds that had been released over time, which began on December 10th, 2004. So Narbacular Drop has 4 release dates depending on what definition of the release date you want to go with. I have no clue where April 24th comes from. It's listed as such on the Valve developer community article from the game, and none of my research shows anything happening on that day, so we can cross that one out. May 1st is when DigiPen published the game on the website, but April 19th is when the original completed release occurred. Therefore, I'm choosing to say that April 19th, 2005 is the actual release date for Narbacular Drop. As of this video going live, it is now April 19th, 2025, meaning it's the 20th anniversary of Narbacular Drop. To commemorate the anniversary, I wanted to sit down and remake the entire game within Portal 1. This task of bringing Narbacular Drop to the Source engine has been attempted by many people in the past, but I wasn't content with doing a straight port. After all, my friend Wolfclock had already ported Narbacular Drop to Portal 1 for a demo of his project named Quanta. It even includes the mechanic of shooting portals through portals. Instead, I wanted to do something a bit more interesting. I don't bring this up much on this channel, but I've been doing environment and level design for both Portal games as a modder for years. Suffice to say, I know what makes good Portal levels tick and how to make them myself because I've studied them my entire life. My idea is to take Narbacular Drop's levels and to translate them into Portal style levels, translating every mechanic to its closest Portal equivalent, redesigning the level layouts to fit Portal's design philosophies, and appropriately detailing them to the Valve quality standard. So first, before anything, let's establish how we're gonna adapt Narbacular Drop's mechanics. Cubes, buttons, and doors are unchanged. Narbacular Drop only features one cube puzzle at the very start, but these mechanics are all easily translatable. The only major difference is that doors in Narbacular Drop permanently stay open when you've fulfilled the exit condition. So we'll have to take this into account when redesigning levels, as Portal's doors can close again. Impy here is a curious case as there's no direct parallel to him in Portal. For the sake of featuring all of Portal's mechanics, however, I've chosen to translate Impy into a turret for his 2 total appearances in Narbacular Drop. The lava turtle was another fascinating case. Portal doesn't exactly have anything you can control the movement on, but it does have unstationary scaffolds, which can allow you to traverse toxic goo, much like how the turtle lets you traverse, well, lava. And finally, the boulders may also seem without a parallel, but think about it, they're just energy pellets. Chamber 17 in Portal 1 even features something similar to the intro boulder level, where you have to get through a cramped hallway with pellets going back and forth, and then you redirect the pellets into the receptacles. So, without further ado, let's start remaking these levels. The first level, named Polishing Up, is the simplest. You start in a cage, have the portal out, and then you use yourself and a cube to weigh down 2 buttons and open the exit. Also, Impy is running around. Already, I decided to make a stark contrast to the original level. You actually start away from the cage, inside a realization vault that sits where this weird metal cylinder was in the original level. I didn't want the player to start with a portal gun right off the bat, and trying to fit a portal gun pedestal and the realization vault in the same space makes it really cramped. So we got 2 vaults, with the portal gun vault being where the cage originally was. I also changed the radio so it would play a compressed radio version of one of the Narbacular Drop tracks. I actually decided to go on and hide one on every map from here on, so when you play it, see if you can find them. Rest of the levels, however, are translated pretty much one to one. You got the buttons, you got the cube, shoot through the door when it's open, bam, first level of the game adapted. Now for the portalification and polishing up, I decided to do some layout tweaks. First, I framed the door more clearly in the center of the room, and extruded out the test chamber space so it wasn't a plain simple box. This also allowed me to give the cube its own little space to spawn in. Then came time to add the observation room. You would not realize this as a casual player, but these rooms aren't just for decoration or to flood lighting throughout the entire chamber. They actually have a secret purpose in guiding player direction, meaning as a designer, you really have to think about where you place them. Consistent throughout every single observation room in Portal, there is a spotlight that is manually aimed by the level designer to highlight the key areas of the puzzle. This means that Portal's levels are not uniformly lit, and it adds a subtle design language. If you're in a dark spot, it's not important. This is the trend I did for every single following level, so keep that in mind. Next up is Hallway to Hell. Hallway to Hell is split into 2 chunks, an area where you get to a higher platform and drop to the exit, and an area involving the introduction of the lava turtle. Since these 2 parts of the level feel distinct from each other and are connected via a drop down, I made the executive decision to slice it in half, which means I connected the 2 portions of it via an elevator in my remake. The first part of Hallway to Hell reminded me a bit of Chamber 10, the momentum introduction in Portal, so I visually based it on that level. I don't have much more to say about this part. The real big changes come with the lava turtle segment. So in the original, you hop onto the turtle and you direct it across the lava while avoiding these 3 chain links that force you to change direction. Because we replaced the turtle with a scaffold, which move automatically, we need an equivalent to these chain links. Then, I realized a perfect analog. In Chamber 19, just before the fire pit, you're faced with this situation where you need to portal past a barrier that will otherwise knock you off the platform. This was the perfect equivalent and setup. So I replaced the chain links with 3 different obstacles to evade using your portals. The first was a replication of the Chamber 19 barrier, followed up by some grading you have to portal past. Finally, a small hole you have to shoot through. In terms of all the redesigned puzzles, Hallway to Hell was perhaps the most far removed from its original, but that's exactly the kind of thing I was hoping for with a project like this one. I wanted to see just how far removed these levels could end up from their originals. I could hypothetically have been more faithful and have this be 3 identical gratings you just move around the platform to avoid, but that's not as fun when you're automatically moving through it. Besides, making these feel like Portal levels was part of the design philosophy of this remake. Now, we can finally move on to the next level. Run Boulder Run, or Boulder Dash as it's called internally, is the 3rd level in Narbacular Drop, and it introduces the titular boulders of level name fame. The idea behind this level is that you progress through 2 tight corridors with insta-kill boulders going back and forth within them. And then you redirect the boulders with portals into button receptacles that open the exit door. Reaching the exit requires portaling a turtle into the lava and crossing the pit with it, or you can just do a risky fling maneuver over the lava. This level I think translated the best out of all the Narbacular Drop levels, since the buttons being recessed into the floor literally make them pellet catchers. However, I didn't connect these catchers to open the door. Instead, they now activate the scaffold that replaces the turtle. The reason why I did this is due to another Portal level design philosophy: connection rules. Connection rules are a concept that only exists in Portal 1 level design, and it wasn't carried forward into any future Portal thing, not even the Still Alive levels. And in my opinion, they are the secret sauce that make a Portal 1 level feel like a Portal 1 level. Let's analyze Chamber 06 from the first game to get a visual of what I'm talking about. Here, the player is being introduced to the high energy pellets, so everything that embodies what the pellets do mechanically should be shown to the player here. Pay close attention.
Unbelievable. You.
Subject name here.
Must be the pride of.
Subject hometown here.
Did you catch a peculiar detail? Rather than a receptacle for the energy pellet being linked to a door that opens, it instead links to a lift platform that raises you to the exit. This is a conscious decision made by Portal's development team that mechanics that send inputs via the indicator lines have very specific things they link to. What I'm making the point of here is they could have had the pellet catcher open a door, but they actively chose not to. Instead, they make the connection in the player's subconscious that pellets activate platforms. This continues into the other test elements too. Floor buttons will only ever open test chamber doors. Pedestal buttons will only ever open the vertical doors, and turrets don't power anything, but they can weigh down floor buttons sometimes. The only exception is when pedestal buttons are used to open the incinerator and activate a rocket turret, but that's it. Everything else is incredibly consistent. Anyways, that's why these pellet catchers activate a scaffold rather than open the door. This will come up again shortly. Very vertical is the penultimate Narbacular Drop level, and if you played it, you'll know how it feels eerily similar to Chamber 18 in structure. The way you slowly climb up the platforms that get higher and higher using portals. So, I took this as a sign to visually base the remake on Chamber 18. I added some of these number dot signage icons on the ceiling to indicate the order of the platforms, but I don't think they're as useful as I expected them to be because this is a linear path, effectively. The only major change, once again, is to do with the turtle. Originally, you drop it into the lava below, go down a shaft, and hop on its back to ride it through some tight chain links. This gameplay, I could not replicate in the Portal formula. Something I liked about this section in Very Vertical was the fact that you rode underneath the level when doing this. So I did the same for the scaffold here. Just one problem: the chain links. If I wanted to be accurate, I would have grading blocking the player they would have to somehow avoid. You might think, Ossy, why don't you just add portable walls like you did for Hallway to Hell? And great question. It's because of level design, I can't. Remember, this scaffold goes underneath the entire level, and you have to factor in things like line of sight that the player would have. If surfaces existed below, the player could end up skipping a large majority of the puzzle. Plus, it would look kind of ugly to have random blocks sticking out of the goo here, and that would mean people could jump down and survive. Ultimately, I just went with having grading at the start and end of the scaffold parts. Speaking of the scaffold, I've also added a quick pellet redirection sequence here, just so that it fulfills the same gameplay purpose as dropping the turtle down into the lava so you can ride it. Alongside the connection rules. It does kind of mean this level now has a boulder it didn't originally have. The final level of Narbacular Drop is Ledge Ladder. Notable for being an insanely tall expanse you have to climb up, all the while boulders are raining down. This was by far the most interesting to translate. I had already established that pellets would replace boulders, and I wasn't going to back down now right at the end. The problem is that pellets are not affected by gravity. They have no way of descending down the ladder structure of the level. Thus, I needed to get creative. I decided to reach into the depths and look into Portal's beta content, in case there was anything I could equate this to. And then, I remembered this. This is a telescopic arm. It's only ever seen in a 2006 version of the art test room level, and in the final game is broken without code modification to restore its functionality. However, this is exactly what I needed for Ledge Ladder, as it makes the energy pellets into a threat much like the boulders were. I was able to replicate the functionality of the telescopic arm entity by using a Funk Tank entity instead, which gave me control over its range. After some testing, I put several telescopic arms into the level. All of them are in the same spots where the boulders were respawning from. This was perfect. It allowed me to replicate the same game feel as Ledge Ladder, as it forces the player to slow down and look at their options before blindly charging upwards with their portal shots. You can still do this level really quickly, but you come with the risk of running into one of the dozen stray energy pellets flying around at all times because you didn't take your time. And with that, that's Narbacular Drop's levels completed. There is also a fire with fire at the end, which was meant to be for a boss fight in the original Narbacular Drop, but was unable to be finished in time for the project deadline. Since I was cutting it fairly close to the deadline myself, even with some help from my friend Kelsey, history ended up repeating itself, and there's no boss fight here either. So, here it is. You can now download and play Aperture Narbacular right now. It will be down in the description, and you're meant to install it as a map pack for Portal 1. There's an installation guide in the download. It is really easy to install. I'm overall satisfied with the end product of Aperture Narbacular, and it was a very fun thing to undergo making. I seriously encourage you to go play it. I may have left something out of this video so it doesn't spoil the surprise. If you're watching this around the time the video has gone live, I'm planning to do a live stream sometime later to talk about development more in depth than I could in the scope of this video. So I recommend you join my Discord if you want to keep up to date on that. Be sure to follow my Blue Sky and support me on Patreon as well, if you're so inclined. Stay safe y'all. Peace.